If your ink's too slow and your nib won't flow, here's one of the places that you can go. Larry is here to see you through with Mr. Announcer and Cubby too. It's Larry's Fountain Pen Reviews.
John, how you doing, sir? Welcome.
Welcome there. Yeah, how you doing, Larry?
I'm doing just fine, sir. Good to see you. Finally get to meet you.
Yeah, we're just getting the screen adjusted here.
Thankful that Doc Joe knew about you and knows you, and here you are.
Here I am. There's no question about it. This is me. I'm here.
I'm going to turn the show over to your friend, Dr. Joe.
Yes. You want to introduce your entourage, John?
John
travels with an entourage. That's John's daughter, Lauren.
Yeah, my daughter Lauren is here helping me set this thing up. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's a minimal thing. This is the interaction you have. You have a meeting to join, it's fine. We'll have more people joining us, John. So I'm going to give it a few minutes for a few others to join, and then I'll get started. I told John that I have a little presentation to go to show, just to introduce him to everybody. John and I met way back in 1999. Like I said earlier, and I've said this before, he's the reason why I kept going with copperplate script, because I didn't know how to. I don't even know if he remembers the story, but we were in Rochester, New York, and I didn't know how to use my pen. I couldn't get the ink to stick on my pen, and I see him writing from across the room because he has this beautiful whole arm and muscular movement ability, and I'm look to me like a ballet. And so I made a beeline straight for him, and I'm watching him write. He dips the pen in once and gets all these letters out of it. I was getting like a half letter. I'm like, how do you do that? Because I was wrapping orthodontic rubber bands around my nib to get the ink to stay on. And that's when John mentioned to me having to clean the pen point and then not touch it with your fingers. And that made all the difference in the world. For that, we had a fast friendship and very like-minded folks. So what I'm going to do now, let's see who we got coming in. 2 more people waiting in the waiting room. Admit. Jake, when I put this up there, is it possible to have somebody else admit these folks too? Just because
I'll get them. I'll watch for them.
Please do, because I may not see them when I bring up the slide presentation. And once again, I did post a zip folder with a zip file to my website that you can download, and it's got the PDF of the presentation I'm going to show you right now, as well as some of the images that are in there in higher resolution. I also posted the link to that in the chat section. So if you want to see that, please go ahead and do it. So what the purpose of this little slide presentation here is to just introduce John to you guys. And let me see if I can you see the slide, the first slide?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to try and do this in presentation mode. Can you see the whole thing now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Is that Tony Restici out here?
Hey, how you doing, Joe?
What's up, Tony?
Tony.
Tony, I told, hi, Mike, and everybody else. I told John that you made it to a IAMPITH convention.
I did. I asked about him as well.
Yeah, John and I recently we haven't been going a lot. Just other things. We're hopefully we'll both be there this year in Atlanta. So what I want to do now is introduce my good friend, John DeCollibus. John sometimes refers to me as his personal biochemist, even though I have other things I do, but that's an inside joke between us. Yeah. So basically in 2001, and John and I was talking to John about this before, I was, Michael sold the IAMPITH Master Penman Award and ceremony was the brainchild of Michael Soul. You can see Michael up in the left-hand portion of the screen. But the reason why I put this in there is because 4 modern masters were inducted. Michael and 3 others. John was one, Rosemary Buchek in the middle, and then Rick Muffler, who was for many years a resident calligrapher at the White House. Rick has now passed on, unfortunately, had cancer. And but the reason why they're in yellow and Michael's in white is because all 3 of them are left-handers.
Wow.
And so when people say to me, can you do this left-handed? I always point them to John or Rosemary, and and they all 3 of them hold their pens in different fashions. And there's an assumption every lefty writes with a hook. That's not true. And you'll see, which I got shots of John, Rosemary, and Rick using their pens. The only one that writes with some uber hook is, I think, Rosemary. John, am I correct with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, she writes an incredible hook. It's just, yeah. And they had to make a custom pen holder for her just to be able to get the flange adjusted correctly. So 4 masters, 3 of which were left-handers. This is a close-up of John and his master penman certificate, which I'll post an image of next time. And this is 21 years ago. 20,
Wow.
right? What, 21, John? No. Yeah, almost 21 years ago. So as I said, brainchild of Michael Soule. I helped Michael put it together. I was fortunate enough to serve as the master of ceremony for that evening. And this is John's master penman certificate. You can see it here.
Wow.
And there's an image of this in that a higher resolution image in that file that I sent. So here's a guy doing it as a lefty. Yes. Someone want to say something?
Yeah, Joe, you might mention that to do the certificate, if I'm not mistaken, you have to be proficient in 3 or 4 different types of scripts.
That has changed over the years.
Okay.
With this, the history of why they did this and why we had them do that is because, you know, the lineage that our organization has. And if you don't know, IAMPT stands for the International Association of Master Penmen Engrossers and Teachers of Handwriting. It sounds like this real imposing, but it's not. It's for beginners as well. And I think Tony, you can testify to that, as I could back in '99. But we all trace our roots back to a college called the Zenarian College of Penmanship in Columbus, Ohio. One of my mentors, Bill Lilly, who another guy recently passed away in his 90s. Bill was one of the last graduates of Zenarian College in Columbus, Ohio. And one of the things you have to do to show your ability to graduate was produce your own Zenarian certificate. And I've had a few of these from past masters, hand done by them. And it would be signed by, you know, in Bill's case, it was signed by Earl Lupfer as well as Parker Zahner Bloser. But I had one from the late 1800s that was signed by both C.P. Zahner and Elmer Ward Bloser, people of legendary status in our community. And but that's where this came from. So this is sort of your test to be able to pass and progress on. The difference is back in the Zenarian college days, they used to give different seals. Gold seal was the highest mark you could get. Then there was the green seal and the red seal. And I actually had samples of those seals that were unused. I still may have some actually. So that's the whole history of this. And it says something very specifically. It says, mentions that this certifies that John DeCollibus is recognized as having attained the level of master penman for superior achievement in the fine art of penmanship. And in keeping with the tradition of the great master penmen of the past, whose skills set the standards by which all future penmen would be judged. And I think if you see the actual frame, and I think, John, if I'm correct, the actual pen that you used to write this, you actually put into the frame, right, John, at the bottom?
The pen point that I use.
Pen point, right, the pen point, right. I'm sorry, not the whole pen.
Oh.
And then this is some of John's earlier work. And this again, I can't show you much detail with this, but it's in that file I posted up there. So John went ahead and did the Declaration of Independence. It was not meant to be an exact duplicate because we looked at signatures. You know, John and I came linked together with the Zenarian manual of penmanship, and that was like we considered it to be we always said the Bible with the small b. And so the ironic thing is that John's style at some point, not ironic, but the interesting thing is that at some point John's style went towards a guy named Louis Mataraz, which was known for a very specific style of engrosser script, what people call copperplate. My style stuck more with the Zenarian manual, but, you know, I wrote more like Mataraz and Flo, and John wrote more like the Zenarian manual with pen lifts. And people always ask about this. Yeah, what about these pen lifts? And we can get into questions about that later on. But this is from some of his early. John, this is early work, right, John? In the 90s, correct?
1978, the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking my. And what happened was, you know, John used to sell these prints. And I happened to know, so I had a bunch of them. He was using his wrapping paper. What are you doing? I said, give me one of those things. I took that in the Constitution, I think, and scanned it. So this is an envelope that John sent to me. Miss Marilyn asked me if this is my current address. It's not. This is when I lived up in Milwaukee when I was a professor at Marquette Dental School. And you can see here, I mean, and I'm not sure, John, did you see Courtney do something like this? Because the envelope is actually the entire rectangle. John made it look like the envelope was sort of set on top of it. You see? He sort of drew that in. And was that a Courtney thing?
You know, I don't remember. It may well be. At this point, I just don't remember.
The little man in the sled, that was Courtney-esque. Francis B. Courtney was one of these. It was almost freakish ability with the pen. He was called the pen wizard, and he could write in both directions at the same time with chalk or pen. He could write these things that when I look at them, they're just like almost writing in code, just absolutely amazing. But Courtney did these kind of little Christmas things, decorations. But so again, what you're looking at is a rectangular envelope, but where John put my envelope and stamp, it made it look like it was a separate envelope altogether. It's not. It's all one envelope.
Beautiful. That's just incredible.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. And John, so would it be safe to say that what I'm looking at here in the way of script is a combination of Materasian or Louis Materas types script, but also influenced by ornamental penmanship, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I tell people that when they ask me about the Materas style, that I don't do an exact Materas style.
Right. I don't do an exact Zayner Bloser style.
I tell them this is how Materas influenced my existing script.
Yes.
So it's a combination. There's Spencerian and there's Materas things, but it's mostly me after taking copperplate for 15 or 16 years and then suddenly discovering Materas, and then I just made the angle steeper and or less steep, and it took on a whole different look, and I never looked back. I never did the other again.
Materas has a much steeper angle to his script, and so it's just beautiful stuff that you could do, that you could see people do. And in this case, this is how John actually writes and how he holds his oblique pen. He does use an oblique pen. It's the same oblique flange offset that I would use. It's just that he's using it in his left hand. If you notice, he's not writing with a hook. However, and John, you can add to this, that paper he's writing on is almost perpendicular to his chest. So he's writing towards his chest, towards your chest, right, John?
Sort of, yeah. Yeah. I used to write even more so when I used a straight pen holder.
Right.
And once at a convention, Mike Sull was, I said, I wonder how that would work with me doing that, with that kind of a pen. And sure enough, it allowed me to, it made a lot of difference in flourishing because I was able to make better turns. You had more flexibility in it. Yeah.
No, that's, I think I keep it on this thing or not. This is the last one that shows. I had the image of the certificate that John made for me. I can pop that up on the screen. I think you guys have seen that. It's also in that. I believe it's also in that zip file I sent you. But it may be hard to see this, but the way Rick writes is different than the way John writes. And Rosemary Buchek, you can see the hook she uses. She's actually coming over the top of the letters she's writing. Mm-hmm. Rick had also used a hook, but not as extreme. And Debbie Ziner writes pretty much straight up and down. She doesn't use an oblique pen holder. She uses a straight pen holder. I can't explain it to you more than that. John, your pen holder that you were shown using here, that's a Bill Lilly pen holder, right?
Yeah, this pen holder, I did 99% of everything I've done since I got the point. I've got other pen points, some beautiful ones, but this one still feels the best, and it's the one I use the most. And also as you said, Debbie Ziner uses a straight pen holder, but Rick and I forgot her name. Rosemary.
Oh, that's going to cost you, John.
I know. They both use a left oblique, but I use a right oblique. So that's the difference.
And so the other thing too, that, these guys are, dedicated fountain pen users. Some use dip pens, but I think it sometimes gets past people, and I think Michael Ward, if he's not on, should be joining us at some point.
He's on. I think he's just not with video. There he is.
Okay.
I'm here. I did no video today. I'm just not in a place where I can have my video going. Sorry, but I'm here and I'm listening.
No problem. Welcome. Glad you're able to make it on. What I'm going to share with you is the other image I mentioned that I believe I've showed you guys before, and that's the certificate that John did for me. Can you see that?
Wow.
So there's a few elements on here that John put on this thing. If you notice the bird on the upper left, he's holding a red box. That's a box of red box Musselman Perfection nibs. These are nibs that both John and I were addicted to. They were made probably in the late 1800s by the Gillette Pen Company, and it was essentially a Gillette 604EF. For those of you that know about those kinds of pens, they're exceedingly rare to come by. Exceedingly rare. John actually liked the Gillette Principality and the Zenarian Fine Writer, basically the same nib. But if you could see, you can a single one of those pens today could run you anywhere from 20 to as much as $50 for one little steel pen, you know. And they sold a box of 144, sold for about $1 back in the early 1900s. That same box. I mean, John and I were involved in a bidding war on one box of those Zenarian Fine Writers for, I think, we lost the bidding a little over what, $1,900, John, I think it was.
I forget exactly.
Yeah, I was bidding for John, but
Yeah.
I got a question. With today's technology, maybe I've already asked this question, and I apologize for repeating myself. Why is it with today's technology that we can't duplicate those vintage nibs like that, like those original, those nibs that I know the ones we use today are wonderful, but I mean, are they different, that much different than the ones that you were just discussing? And why can't we duplicate that?
I mean, look, Michael achieved some pretty incredible stuff with some modern pen points, but if you start using those pen points, it's like a crack addiction. You know, it's there is a big difference between them. And the modern Leonard Principal, which I think Michael, that's the pen he tends to use, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but that was actually started by one of our friends, Brian Walker, who's also deceased. Brian was a master of this, just plain Spencerian. And but he went to the Leonard Company to get them to make the Leonard Principal nib. The problem is that, I mean, that's a good nib from a modern standpoint, but it can't match up against the Gillette Principality. And that pen costs upwards between $4 or $5 a piece. So if we were to make a pen and could we do it with the technology? Absolutely. But it's the hand inspections. It's that thing that I mean, I don't know what you have to charge for a single pen. And it becomes prohibitive. What really has kept the dip pen industry alive is really artists. I mean, artists use these things for drawing cartoons and shading and things like that. You know, most penmen that we have, or calligraphers, don't buy that many pen points. They'll buy them in bulks, maybe like 20 of them, this and that, where at one point, I won't speak for you, John or Mike, but I had several thousand pen points, spent thousands of dollars on them, and spent the vintage ones. And in order for me to do what I was doing, I had to have specific nibs, and particularly the red box Musselman. The blue box Musselman was stiffer. I didn't like it. John had some of those.
Larry has a question.
Yeah.
Okay, Larry.
I don't know if I'm in the right category to discuss it. I may be ahead of myself, but questions that come into my mind. When we're doing calligraphy, is there only one type of certain writing instrument that you use for calligraphy? Or can a person use a brush for calligraphy? What size nib do you have to use for calligraphy? Also, I am going to bring on a gentleman soon that does calligraphy, I believe, in brush. Isn't that right, Mr. Announcer?
I think so, yes.
And I am going to be showing his work.
Yeah.
And you'll find his work amazing, over the top. You're not going to believe it. So, and he was talking to me what he would like to do, and he's not sure because of the pen community, are they going to accept him? He wants to go to a pen show and put his artwork out there because it's done with pens as well. All the artwork is done with pens, and it's amazing. I've never seen such talent at this young man. So that means, like Mike Ward and all you folks out here, everybody brings a piece of a puzzle that's very important to what you do. Calligraphy, calligraphy is for masters. It's for people that are really into it, that are really dedicated into what they do. So that's my question.
Yeah, Larry, there's not just one pen, and I can let others speak about this. I mean, you've got pointed pens, you've got broad pens, you got oblique cut pens, you also have brush work. I mean, remember, the masters in Japan, that what they consider fine writing is with brushes. There are things, as you well know, there's things that look like fountain pens, but they're really brushes. And you can buy those. They're beautiful to write with. Not the kind of style I would do, but you have broad edge work for Gothic and Old English and stuff like that. There's many different styles.
Pat Blair at the last IAMPETH was using brushes for some designs on making floral arrangements, and I really enjoyed watching her do that. So yeah, Larry, there's people that do the brush calligraphy, and people I asked one time, Mike Soll about what fountain pen could I use to write Spencerian script, and he said no fountain pen can write Spencerian script because of the amount of shading you have to get in this, and the being able to spread those tines enough. But you can write calligraphy with the fountain pen. If you're getting a stub, you can do italics. I would assume, and I'm not an expert. I don't want to speak out of place, but I believe you can. You have, Larry, if you have an italic nib or a stub nib, you can do italic. Some script like that. So with a fountain pen.
John, would you do me a favor, John? Would you speak a little bit about the challenges you face being a lefty?
Yeah.
Whether it's writing with a ballpoint pen, a dip pen, whatever it might have been. What are the challenges you faced as a lefty?
What I like to do, Tony, is get more in depth in the italic pens and those type of nibs.
Right.
I haven't played enough with them, but the little experience that I've had with them, I haven't got much enjoyment out of them because they cut the paper, because that's my fault, because I don't know how to use them.
Right.
And maybe we can get a class going on here to show people how to use different nibs. Now, I am working on getting different nib masters on here as well, so they can break down and talk about nibs. I think that will all come together as one.
Yeah, that's a good plan, Larry. I think we will, and we're going to let John, if you wouldn't mind, answering that question, because Larry, you asked about left-handed writers, and John, go ahead and explain how your experience with writing implements.
Well, when I was in the first grade and early elementary school, I was the only lefty in the class, and and I tried to change, and I just couldn't. And everybody's handwriting was better than mine. And that went on for years and years. It wasn't a huge problem. I didn't have real psychological issues, but I always wanted to be able to write like some of the girls that one of them sat next to me, and she just had this great handwriting. Then when I get into high school in the 11th grade, this teacher, my English teacher, Mr. Hoddleman, we had to do a 500-page reports every week, and he finally wrote on a piece of paper, which I actually have. It was torn up, but I put it together. He said, I will no longer accept your handwriting. He said, you either have to type it or print it, or I won't accept it. It was that bad. And it was mostly because I had been all of my life writing with a hook, bent over like that. And I saw this kid that sat next to me. His name was Seth Fenner, and he wrote straight up with a pen. He was left-handed. He didn't write with a hook, and he had great handwriting. And I said, I'm going to do that, and I'm never going to go back. And I never did. So for a while, my handwriting was awful because it was totally foreign to me. But I was determined. That's when the teacher told me I won't accept it anymore, because it was terrible. I mean, it was legible as far as I'm concerned, but it was terrible. To this day, I really struggle with a ballpoint pen. If I go really slow, it's fine, but otherwise, not so much. But then when I saw the first calligraphy book, script by Tommy Thompson, I think it was way back in the mid-'70s, and I was well out of school. I was married, and I saw that, and I said, gee, I'm going to try that. And I did, and sure enough, it started looking pretty good. And then I found I took a class, and the teacher saw that I really wasn't interested in broad pen, even though that's what they were teaching. He saw me using this, and he goes, I can't teach you pointed pen, but I've got something I'm going to bring in next time that I think you're going to really like. And he brought me in the photocopies of about 5 pages of the Zenarian manual, the ones about script by Lupfer. And I literally spent 8 to 10 hours a day practicing that. I never got bored. I missed a lot of meals. I was so determined to get it like that. And, you know, then I was satisfied with it. And then it was soon after that, I did the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights. And then I did a lot of other things. I made my living at it.
Now,
Anyway,
John, I got a
that's it.
question. I want to go back to a little what you said, because I'm curious. Ballpoint pen. What did the ballpoint pen have play in doing your calligraphy? I've never heard of such a thing. Do you lay down the work first for a ballpoint pen and then you do calligraphy? How does that work?
No, I never did calligraphy per se with a ballpoint pen. That's just, I struggled with the ballpoint pen. It was when I discovered, actually, the first pen point I got was a Speedball number 6. It was, I thought that's what they were talking about in the book that I read, and I used it and it was okay. And then one day I remember reading the words, and I think I even underlined it, and I have the book somewhere. It said flexible steel pen. I went into the art supply store and I said, what is a flexible steel pen? And he said, this right here was a Hunt 101. And I got to tell you, that was life-changing when I got home with that thing and realized what it can do. And it's kind of a, it's almost like a Zenarian fine writer in some ways, but the quality is bad, and you know maybe 1 in 10 is pretty good, but it made a big difference, a huge difference. And then I went from there and found I think it was Del Tisdale. I met him and we talked about pinpoints, and that's when I purchased a lot of the Musselmans and a lot of the Zenarian fine writers from him at a price right now that, it was a lot of money to me, but I said, no, I got to have them. And Joe has several boxes that he got out of that thing.
Oh yeah, I had them. I don't really use them any. I got rid of most of them, John. But I just put up the Zenarian manual. I got a PDF of this. I can post it to if you guys were interested in seeing it. David Grimes actually had a high resolution copy free online of this. But this was and this is really where John and I connected, because the one thing I wanted to really make a point of here, it's less about the quality of the pen. That does matter. It's not unimportant, but to get to a certain level of writing like John achieved, it takes an incredible amount of dedicated practice. I mean, I can't tell you how many. I mean, I did a lot of this when I was a graduate student going for my PhD, and I would get up every morning, discipline practice, and practice every single day, 7 days a week. And it's that insanity that sort of gets this. And when John and I first met, we go to IAMPA conventions. I always joke about this. We could sit there in the archive room. It has incredible incredible array of specimens from past masters, and we can sit there and we can talk about a single letter for like 45 minutes. I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's the kind of drive and passion you have. There's nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with picking up a pen and just writing and having fun with it. In the end, Larry, it's got to be fun. If it ain't fun, it's not worth it. Hey, Marilyn, welcome. In the end, I mean, Marilyn does some great work with just a fountain pen, and you got to be able to write. That's the thing. You got to be able to write. It doesn't matter if you don't achieve what you think of perfection. Neither John or I have ever achieved perfection.
Well, let me just tell you, let me just add that that didn't happen overnight. That took like 4 months of like constant practice.
They had it. I think it's important that we have people who use, with regards to what pen is, but I didn't want you to think, Larry, that, you pick up a brush and write like a Japanese writing master or Chinese writing master. That doesn't happen. You've got to be able to put, the time into it and everything else like that. So, but John, when you were practicing flourishing, am I correct? You would basically use pencils on newspaper, right?
I did, and then I also would do, in fact, whenever I want to just have some fun, I always have a newspaper, one of these free ones that you get, and in front of me, and I love the way the pen feels on newsprint. It has a certain feel. I don't
Oh,
like
it's a stop. Sorry.
shiny paper. I don't. So
John, talk a little. I mentioned this group in the past about the.
Real quick, Joe, I think Aiden had a question or a comment.
Yeah, who had it? I'm sorry.
Aiden.
Oh, I'm sorry, Aiden. I didn't see. I wasn't watching the chat.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Yeah, so I want to ask this question to all the experts in handwriting here. So you and John and the expert calligraphers. So if you don't mind me sharing the screen right now, here's a sample, if you can see that, of my lettering. And
Yeah.
this is the lettering I use on a daily basis.
Okay.
So this is how I write normally.
Right.
And I've been writing with cursive for about 7 years now, taught in school.
Mhm.
And so this is how I write on a normal basis. I write, everything like this. So as a calligrapher, one, do you have any advice on this handwriting? And two, how would you guys write in a normal day-to-day situation? Since I know Spencerian and writing with an oblique pen holder or a flex nib dip pen is not as practical.
Well, for my answer, real quick, and I'll let John talk. My day-to-day handwriting is almost illegible, even to me. I always tell people what I'm doing is not handwriting. What I'm doing is calligraphy. And so if you watch the way I write, it's very slow. It's not practical for taking notes. What I'm trying to do is inspire people to want to be able to write and write pretty. But I don't, my everyday, I never worked on that, Aiden. My focus was in grocer script, what people call copper plate today. It was never on handwriting. And grocer script is drawing letters. Now I'll let John speak now.
Yeah, as I mentioned, my handwriting is terrible. I would love to have the writing that's on the screen there right now as my everyday writing.
Yeah, me too.
But it would be much better if I did write slowly. Like Joe said, if I went slow with a ballpoint pen, it would be great. But you can't. Nobody's going to take that kind of time. And I still, every now and then, I pick up a pencil or pen and I say, maybe if I hold it this way, and then I go, hey, that works good. And then I say I do it again. It doesn't work that way. So I've kind of given up on my regular handwriting. The other thing is my art, it's calligraphy. It's a whole different deal. And people are very disappointed when they ask me to write something. They say, but, and I go, I know, I didn't want to show you this, but it's two separate things for me.
Yeah. Aiden, I'm not a calligrapher, but I will tell you that my study of the Spencerian with Mike Soll and with Mike Warden, I've been studying Spencerian and what it has improved my handwriting in general. For those of you that have gotten letters from me, hopefully you've seen improvement in my handwriting over the years that I've been writing letters. But yeah, I think just the fact that, but the speed kills sometimes when you're writing, like John says. I start writing, by the end of my letter, the handwriting has degraded quite a bit from the beginning.
Yeah, I tend to write fast. I think that's the thing with me. Like this is a letter that I'm in the process of writing right now. I think this one is addressed to Dr. Vitolo, actually. And this is, I got to find an envelope for it, but it's done. And so I end up writing fast. And my handwriting that you saw on the screen is me writing fast.
Back in the day, if I might just interject for a second, back in the day, you were expected to write at a certain speed. Mike Ward and I looked this up, and it was a stroke per 300 beats per minute. And that's like super fast. Nobody writes that fast. If you write that fast, you're going to break something. And like, I've tried. I think we've all tried, but like, you got to slow down just a little bit.
Marilyn, let me just add this. I don't want people to equate speed with sloppy. It's not.
Oh, no.
The old masters developed this through hours upon hours of push-pull exercises and circles. They could write fast. When you talk to Bill Lilly, God rest his soul, Bill Lilly would tell you when Parker Zaner Bloser signed his hand-done Spencerian certificate, He said he was above the paper with the ink pen point, tracing these lines, landed the pen and executed it without blinking an eye. But you're talking about people whose entire focus was that. We have day jobs. You know what I mean? There's other things we have to do with our lives. And there's nothing wrong with writing fast. If you ask for general comments about just in general writing, I mean, make sure your letters are consistently slanted. Try and keep your X heights as much as you can within the bounds of the baseline in the head. These are just simple principles. One of the things that separates script from, the type of script that John and I did was we were very precise about angulation, the height of letters. But that's if you're trying to do that. And I don't want people to think that, there's no such thing as perfection. For me, and I'm sure for John too, I don't want to speak for him, but it was the quest for perfection that was really enticing to us. And I can count few specimens I've ever written that I was happy with. People, oh, you're being ridiculous. No, I'm not. That's how you get better. If you accept yourself as being at a certain level, you'll never get past that level. But if your intention is just write and have a good time, have at it, man. Have at it. There's not. I mean, I said, if you see my handwriting, which I will not show you, I can't write. I can't. That's why I don't take notes. I do not take notes. I can't read it.
And it takes a very special amount of flow. Like if you're writing something and you're into the flow of it and it looks like nice and even, then
go with it.
Go with it.
That's what they.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
But if you can't read it, then you need to slow down.
Yeah, I think when we were talking, Dr. Vittel, I showed you my my notes for some classes, and that's how I take notes, on a daily basis.
No, if all of a sudden you decided at some point in the future you wanted to focus and be able to write like A.N. Palmer, or you wanted to write like C.P. Zaner in your daily notes, that could be done, but the amount of effort it would take would
be much difficult.
Yeah,
it would be much more difficult.
It's also
and I do it all with fountain pen, not any sort of.
Yeah.
Everyone always says that it's difficult, but it's not difficult. It's practice and repetition that's difficult. Once you're actually writing like in a like a professional manner, like it seems so easy. I did a piece for a lady about 8 months ago, and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced, and then when I came to do the part, it just flowed out of my hand like it was natural.
And I think it's good that you guys are using fountain pens, because one of the challenges that I have and John has is that when we go to these conventions, people ask us to sign their books. And, when you're doing fountain pen, when you're doing dip pen work, with the sharp steel, I mean, I've had things bleed into the page, and, and John will tell you the same thing, or people that do, envelopes for weddings. I mean, I know John doesn't particularly like that, but, because you can't use the paper you want to use and you need to use. So, but no, the thing is, use your pens and have fun. Calligraphy is a great thing. It's beautiful. You achieve whatever level you're at. It's got to be something fun. If it becomes unfun, why do it? I think for me, Marilyn, there was a meditative quality to this. When I was
sure.
Yeah, and
if you're not in the zone when you're writing, if you're being distracted by other things, you're not going to have as much fun.
Well, I had a conversation. Okay, who's talking?
Oh, that was me. I was just going to say, honestly, that's what got me into it. When I was into fountain pens and I was trying to improve my handwriting a little bit, I would get into this just really relaxed, sort of zenned out feeling, and I would do my practice. And then I just want to make a couple notes, just because the 300 strokes per minute thing was dropped. That was a specific drill that Hamblin suggested, but nobody actually wrote that fast. That was a movement drill for an oval.
Oh, I see.
Nobody actually.
That's right.
It's impossible to write that fast with any amount of clarity. That was just a drill. They would practice their drills and ovals and stuff faster than they would write. They still wrote really quickly. But yeah, that wasn't actual writing that speed. And then as far as advice, I mean, the handwriting, if that's the writing you're doing in classes and you're using fountain pen, if the day comes that you want to improve it a little bit, grab a Palmer Method book or grab the PDF online, look at some of the little drills. And then because that's not your main focus, you don't have to dedicate like your whole life to it, but try some of the little drills or the exercises, or even just compare. You'll start seeing like, that's what their A looks like versus what my A looks like. And it'll just change the image of the letter in your mind, which will then eventually change the way that you put it down on paper. So you'll be able to keep taking your notes and writing with the flow the way you enjoy doing, but in time, it might creep towards looking something that you would maybe consider a little cleaner if that's what you're going for.
There's a book called The Theory of Spencerian Method of Practical Penmanship.
Yes.
And this book is how I got my writing okay, like for like everyday writing. So if you're looking for a book, I will put that in the group so you guys can download that link, because that's the one.
If you go to the IAMPITH website, there's a rare book section. I personally have scanned cover to cover many of those books. And when it comes to Spencerian penmanship, the standard book, which everybody goes to, is the, John, remember that big hardcover one, the Practical Theory of Spencerian Penmanship, or something like that. It's a hardcover book.
The New Spencerian Compendium is the biggest.
Yes.
That's the Spencerian or ornamental penmanship Bible.
And Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Tamlin book was the first glimpse we had at how this stuff was taught, because none of us studied with old masters that were still in their skill level. You know, when I met Bill was already in his 80s. None of us had the fortune, including John, to, John, you study with any of the old type masters? I mean, most of them are gone by the time we came into the group. You know, John preceded me in the group.
Right. I did not.
No, and I mean, so we really didn't see anybody do, well, Del Tisdale was probably the only one. And I was told before I met Del in Chicago that if you blink, you'll miss him right, especially capital letters. Like, no way, you can't do it that accurate. And it's just no way I believe that. So sure enough, man, I was standing there watching Del write. He moved his pen across the paper, and these 3 capital letters came out. I'm looking at it like, what the heck did he just do? You know, it was just, I mean, but he was trained by an old master, Leland Watkins. And, and Del would tell you, he wore tables out practicing. It's an obsession with some of us. And so I never had the willpower to sort of learn true muscular movement. And Michael, to your credit, you know, you might be the finest exponent of that now in literally the world. It's a hard thing to learn. John also, at one point, you know, it still does, had whole arm movement too. And that's how I first noticed him across the room. He's probably doing some flourish or something, but you know, yeah. So anyway, it was the speed is something that was used for training, but that was the Tamlin book was the first glimpse at that. And I was very proud that I had something to do with the reprint of that book. I helped them with the history of, I'm a historian. The history
and I'll say that the reprint of the Tamlin book, I own the original, and the reprint is of no lower quality than the original, period. Like a lot of the old books, I mean, you might think they're better or worse or you think the original was much better. The reprint, for anybody who's interested in getting it, it's easily as good as the original, because I have the original and they're the same.
That's the little blue cover with the multi. Okay.
Yes, Carl. Hey, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. So we were talking about all these, you know, these handwriting training drills. Actually, before I got into, a lot of people get into handwriting after they get into fountain pens, yes? And they start working on that because of the fountain pen. I got into the fountain pen because of the handwriting. I started writing in cursive with a ballpoint, with a pencil, and found it wasn't natural, which is what made me move into fountain pens and eventually vintage fountain pens with gold nibs, that some are flexible, some are not. So for example, you know, I just got a new pen, the Cornet, which is, you know, a manifold nib, so a hard nib, but I prefer that writing sensation over a ballpoint to write cursive. So I actually discovered IAMPITH and Spencerian script and copperplate and things like that way before I started fountain pens, which is in nowadays quite different than how a lot of people get into handwriting. It's more of the fountain pens to handwriting rather than the handwriting to fountain pens.
Yeah, no, I hear you. What I'm going to do right now, real quick, just in case somebody hasn't seen this before, I am going to share my Safari page with you guys and show you this. I'm on the IAMPIT website right now. If you look towards the bottom where my finger thingy is going, you see rare books on the bottom right. If you click on that, if I can, unless they had, yeah, all these books are available. Page, you know, I'm happy to say some of those I'd scan cover to cover myself, but I was talking about the Spencerian one, and these are now on some other website that you have to go to and look at them, but they're all available for free. And so if I do Spencerian here and apply that, where is the book? The legendary here it is, New Spencerian Compendium. I don't know why, but this book almost killed me scanning it. But if you go there, you can actually download or see PDF versions of this as well, and scan anywhere into the book. It's a pretty densely, but this is the book that, as Michael and I were saying earlier, really was considered to be the Bible of Spencerian. And so it's on the IAMPIT website. If you go, if you go there, anybody has questions, please feel free to ask. Or
that was going to be the next one that I was going to suggest, but you beat me to it.
Oh, sorry, Marilyn.
That website, I mean, just that rare book section, just as a fun little note, I spent probably 2 years in that rare book section before I even knew IAMPIT was an association that you joined or anything. I never paid any attention to the rest of the website. I just used the books because I thought they were awesome. And then I, long after, discovered this amazing community and everything.
And that's the other great thing about, not that we're trying to bolster the organization, but, you know, I dare say at the time I went into it in '99, I don't know if anybody existed in the world that was better than John DeCollibus. I'm not saying that to blow smoke up his ear. That's what I truly believe. And where else can you go and sit down next to someone and have them help you? You know, and I mean, Bill Lilly was the same way with me, you know, and that's also why I do what I do, because I literally couldn't write with the pen until I met John. And, you know, I was doing experiments during the day and then coming in and trying to spend some time there and then going back to the lab. But it was just happened to be 2 weeks before the convention hit. I met somebody in the Department of Biochemistry and Biophysics, and someone named Annabelle, who's no longer with us, I don't think. And I said, Annabelle, are you a calligrapher? I said, his name tag. And I started talking to her, and she said, I said, oh, I am too. I said, blah, blah. And she said, oh, Joe, in 2 weeks, IAMPIT's going to be here. Like, what's IAMPIT? And that's how it happened. It was totally, in many respects, serendipitous, you know?
Yeah. It was a fabulous week for me, and Mike will tell you, in his class was what a fabulous teacher Mike is, and everyone up there was just extremely helpful, and it was like being at a pen show, but about calligraphy and handwriting. It was awesome.
Yeah, I don't think there's many people in the world, I'm going to sound conceited when I say this, that know more about the history of this than I do. Mike is one of them. He's got me hands down on that. I mean, that's where Mike and I connected, with the history of this stuff. And
Mike Sull, not me, just
right. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Michael Sull. No, I know.
By the way, I just got off the phone with him the other day, and he's having some issues with his throat. Something really went on with some nerve issue in his throat. So I was supposed to go to his house, and I'm going to postpone it for a week or two.
Yeah, he also wrote lots of poetry on penmanship. It's something he would treat us to with IAMPIT, get up there and you know, but again, one of the greatest things for me is the chance to get together with my friends when I was there. And anyone's welcome to join us, but you know, John and I would hang out. The archive room alone is worth the trip.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you hear us talk about Lupfer, you hear us talk about Madaras. We actually have a Madaras scrapbook that he used to make. You'd pay him a certain amount of money. And he made this one for Gigi Houle, and that's now in the IAMPIT archives. It's crazy how much stuff is in there. One time, Michael Sull's studio was an archive. He'd have stuff all over the place. He'd reach in and grab out this treasure. You know, it's just the amount of stuff he had was just amazingly over the top. So.
So Mike Ward, I want to address this to you personally. Mike, I was totally impressed with all the work you were doing. And then I saw other work that I've been checking you out. And if you have the time, I need to bring you back, because you have so much to offer. People can't even imagine the type of work you do. I mean, you're amazing. So I'm going to get back with you down the road and see if we can bring you back. And also, I want to ask about when you're doing the calligraphy, is there a certain pen that you start out? Is there a beginner's pen?
Typically with pointed pen stuff, and I'll let Mike and John drink. If we're talking about dip pens and oblique pen holders specifically now, not fountain pens, typically beginners usually start with stiffer points because the sharper, more flexible points can be very difficult to control. And sometimes people make the mistake of thinking if you buy the pen holder and the pen point that Louis Mataraz used, you can write like Mataraz. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Mataraz was one of the best that ever lived at that. And so there are beginner sets but with the oblique pen holder, the thing is, if it's not adjusted correctly and you got a bad nib, and the majority of modern nibs are not good, you're gonna leave the art form. And that's one of the reasons why I developed my pen holder. You know, Brian with the Leonard principle. Michael, you are using Leonard principles, correct?
These days, I switched between the Leonard Principle and the Hunt 101.
Okay.
The Hunt 101 has been my flavor of choice for quite a while now, but I preface that with saying that I sharpen and tune all of which takes a long, or I mean, it's time consuming, but I tune all my nibs. So I have like the Hunt 101s that I use. In my personal opinion, the way my hand uses them, I will prefer them. I have Zenarian fine writers that I would rather reach for my 101, which sounds ludicrous, I know, and some may disagree with me, but I legitimately have 101s that I personally prefer to some of the Zenarian fine writers and some of the fancy old pens, and that's just because not all the ones back in the day were the same either, depending on the box and depending on the year.
I mean, in the end, the proof is in the results, right? And your results.
As a person who is a newly made calligrapher, I can tell you that if you're just starting out, the harder nibs are better to go with, and probably Zebra G is good, Nico G, and then try and get into like some softer nibs like the Principle and the 101 and the 22B, because if you start off with a 22B, you're going to stab into the paper and that's all you're going to do. It's very sharp.
Well, I want to just add one thing, and I might be way off, but just as different ballpoint to a fountain pen and how you have to apply pressure and all that you use, you know, the fountain.
Oh yeah, it's totally different.
The dip pen is probably, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Mike and John and Joe, it's even lighter, a lighter touch, and you have to have a little more control.
For sure.
Than using a fountain pen.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean,
Who said it?
Yeah.
Who said it? I think it was Michael Soul that said, you have to pretend like you're writing on the top of water and trying not to disturb it.
That's good.
Well, I don't know if you're on, John. I always forget who said what, John, but there were two different expressions that I told this group about. One was you and one was Brian Walker. Someone said the pen should never touch the paper, only the ink. Or the other expression was the pen should never press against the paper should press against the pen. They talk about lightness. Was one of those credited to you, John?
The paper against the pen was me. The other one was,
yeah,
I guess, Brian.
Because I mean, when I was first writing, I mean, even into my experience days, John would take my pen holder with my pen. He glided across the paper. I wouldn't hear anything. I take, and all of a sudden I'm hearing the pen on the paper, and it's got to do with lightness of touch. And I never really developed that with the oblique, but with the fountain pen, I was horrified how hard I was pressing on the fountain pen, you know. And so I've worked to really I'm not saying I have a light touch, but you know, the cushion. I may have asked you this before, John, but maybe you and Michael can address this when it comes. I've said this to the group before. You should never really write with a single sheet of paper on a hard surface, right? You're using cushion sheets, right?
I always use a cushion sheet, usually newspaper, about 8 or 10 pages from a newspaper.
And there could be,
That gives you the buoyancy there.
yeah, there could be too many though, right, John? I mean, I found too many cushions. I lose control of the tip of the pen.
It depends. In fact, like right here, this is one of the local free newspapers that come out in the town, and it's fairly flat though. It's not like a big folded newspaper you get. It's very flat, so I could use this. Will be 20 pages in here, but it's flat. But it gives me the bounce, you know. That's what.
Michael, do you use cushion sheets, or you just use your blotter, your leather blotter?
I use the leather is good for me. I mean, before I started doing the leather blotters, I would same as John. I would usually in the 5 to 10 sort of realm of pieces of paper underneath my writing sheet. But normally now it's just leather, and then I tend to use a guide sheet most of the time. So it's leather, one sheet of paper that's usually as a guide, and then my writing sheet. Because the leather that I use it's upholstery leather, so it's very, very soft. So it gives me any of the bounce that I would require.
And I also use cushion sheets when I use my fountain pen, because I tend to write on a pad of paper completely.
Yeah.
So I use the Rhodia R papers, and I basically just, there's tons of, they're not all bouncy, but there has to be a certain level of spring to the paper.
Unison composition book, 50 cents.
There you go. That actually, it brings back many memories, Marilyn.
Unison composition book, 50 cents from Target. Best stuff, better than Tomoe River, if you ask me.
I never liked Tomoe to be. I know people might want to string me up for saying that, but it's remarkable paper and how thin it is, but it just gives me too fat a line.
I can't use a dip pen with it, but I can use my fat fountain pens with it.
And that's Michael. When you wrote, I know what size fountain pen tip did you prefer to write with?
So all of my fountain pens that I use today are as many X's as you can get before the fine. I like them to be as fine as possibly can be, but that's just because my hand and my eye is trained to always look like John. The line that I like is the smallest hairline that exists, basically. So obviously that's not perfectly replicable with a fountain pen, but that's what I like the most. I don't use a broad or anything wet. I like dry, super fine lines.
And John, do you have any experience with modern fountain pens or vintage fountain pens, John? I never spoke to you about that.
Vintage fountain pen. The only one I have is the Mont Blanc Meisterstück that I did when I did that thing with Hugh Jackman.
What did they give you? Oh, yeah, you should probably tell them that. What did they give you, a 146 or a 149?
I don't know, but they knew I was left-handed and he's left-handed, so they made me go get a manicure and do all this, and I went into New York and spent 2 nights at a nice hotel. But when I actually did it, they had me, I'm holding the pen, and they got a million cameras on me, these huge cameras, and they're going, okay, start writing. And I go, what do you want me to write? And they just said, whatever you want. So I just wrote, I love you so much. And they go, okay, hold the pen up a little farther. Okay, now do it. And then they said up here, so that my hand wasn't in the picture. So I'm holding it like 1.5 inches from the top. Try writing like that sometimes. So you can't, but for the angle they were shooting, it didn't matter. Yeah, if you look it up, if you look up I Tell Stories, Mont Blanc, I Tell Stories. It's a commercial for Mont Blanc, and there's 2 segments where I'm writing, but you don't see me, and you don't see.
You never met Hugh Jackman, right?
Did I? You
Yeah.
say? He was there. He didn't talk much, but he was in the room.
Do you know if he wrote with a hook or not?
No, well, I don't know if when they actually show the picture of him writing at a distance, it looks like he's not writing with a hook, but he's actually just scribbling on a piece of paper, because they're like 20 feet away. After I write, they show him, and he's far away. So, yeah.
So you basically were the writing stand-in.
I was. I always tell people I was a body double. There it is.
There you go.
Oh, wow. How about that?
Yeah, John, it looks like he's writing without a hook. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And
well, maybe in the next action adventure movie, I'll have you come in there and stand in again for him.
I'm available.
Super Pen. That's it.
another great thing about the organization I am with is that a lot of those members, you had people like Rick Muffler, Pat Blair, who were calligraphers at the White House, resident calligraphers at the White House. A lot of those folks have done Academy Award nominations and things like that. So this is, from a U.S. standpoint, it was pretty much, an elite cadre of calligraphers. Now, the counterparts in Europe, I mean, that's where they really have that tradition from Johnson and all that stuff, which sometimes gets into used to get into these heated flaming wars online for no reason. It's all good stuff. It's just all good stuff. Now, there are people who don't like cursive script. They prefer italics. That's whatever. Just put the pen to paper and write. Anyway, any other questions?
Oh,
Aiden, what did you say you like in your fountain pens, fine or mediums?
Me?
Yeah.
I usually write with something between a fine and a medium. I mean, most of my pens are stiffer nibs for note taking, so I have a lot of manifold.
Bless you. I prefer stiffer nibs myself.
Yeah. For manifold, a lot of the vintage pens that I have, this is one really, really nice one. This is
that's beautiful.
an Eversharp Coronet. Yeah, this is about as rare as you can go with Eversharp. And I just got this the other day, and I don't know if y'all can see that, but it says manifold on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that'll show up clearly.
What's at the base of that feeder? Is that some mechanism?
Oh, yeah. This is really interesting. So you can see that this is a particular thing. It's a marketing gag from Eversharp, but it's this sort of ink shutoff feed, so that ink won't pour through the feed and drip on paper. It was supposed to prevent blobbing.
Okay.
But you can see this has like a clear section here. This pen is notorious for being terrible to repair because there's two sections. And if you pull this out without being careful, you're going to break the inside section, which is plastic and brittle, as all Eversharp plastics were. So Eversharp's made some of the most beautiful pens, but were some of the most inefficient to repair. So here, there's the inside section. When I pulled it out, I got lucky because it didn't break. So this one was recently restored and is now entering my personal collection. And I just got on eBay a set, I guess, of a darted Wall Eversharp Skyline to join my collection of Skylines. Today, my daily carry was a Skyline, actually. And this pen is also very, very uncommon since it's one of the solid gold patterns. I don't know if y'all can see that there.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Yes, very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, the pattern is a more uncommon pattern because they made a lot of patterns, but this one's kind of this darted pattern.
Yeah. And you think I don't think that's stamped. That's probably guilloche, right? Hand done lines.
Yeah, it's probably or maybe it's engraved. I don't know, but it's got a flex nib on it by the look of the writing sample, which is why I got it.
Mm-hmm.
What?
And also
14K?
14K flex nib, which Eversharp was actually known for as well. Troy LaPlante has done many reviews on Eversharp Skylines, and he's talked about their flex nibs. They're supposed to be very good. I've gotten three manifolds on all three of my Eversharp pens, and they were the king of Art Deco. They were the company that specialized in it. Yeah. So they did very good Art Deco. So you can see this cap with the sort of cathedral Art Deco design and all the geometric shapes. Yeah. So I don't mean to turn this into a show and tell, but it's the vintage pens to me. It has to write well and it has to fit well in the hand. And you can see I've got quite big hands, and this fits very well. And it writes very well.
Is that an ebonite feed on that? I'm assuming it would be.
Almost all vintage pens,
Yeah.
with the exception of some very low third-tier pens, have ebonite feeds and 14-karat gold nibs, which is why a lot of people prefer them, because you get a big bang for your buck when you get vintage ebonite feeds. And you can clearly see that, a pen like this, this one is very expensive due to the fact that it's gold filled and it's very rare. It's not common at all. Normally they retail for anywhere between $500 to $1,000 on the restored market. I was able to get this for $625, which is a good deal. But yeah,
The other
in
thing
terms
about
of vintage flex,
the other thing about ebonite feeds is that when you see someone like Masuyama work on pens to get them writing better, the ebonite really is accommodating to hot water and adapting it to the side of the nib.
Well, you don't want to heat it up with water. That's the important thing. That's really, really bad to do, actually. You want plastic to heat up in hot water. You do not want to touch ebonite in any water. That's the thing. You never want to use water on ebonite wherever on the pen because it gets discolored. What you want to do with
we're talking about the feed. You're right. I know. Yeah, no, we're talking about
even the feed. Even the feed, you don't want to touch with water to be safe.
Ink is water. Ink is water. You can't say it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't touch it.
You want to use dry heat. Is the overall advice is to use dry heat. And so I think the main thing is with these ebonite feeds, they're really accommodating to the nib. So you can shape them to fit the nib rather than having to bend the nib over to fit the feed. So this is a Waterman's nib with a Waterman's feed. And it's a really, really, really nice flexy nib that works wonderfully. And Waterman's pens, if any of you guys are calligraphers and want to get into getting a vintage flex pen that's not what do you call it? A dip pen, but it's still kind of practical for writing. Watermans are the way to go with their flex nibs. So, John, if you write with if you want to write with a vintage pen or fountain pen at all, and you really want to replicate to the best of the degree this kind of style, the Watermans do the job.
Actually,
and you can get.
Go ahead, Hayden. I want to take this back to John.
Yeah. You can get them ground to hairline points for Mike. A lot of people do that. They grind them really, really thin. And same with Pelican. They grind them really, really thin. And I sold a Parker Lucky Curve to a friend of mine who requested that, I gave him a very thin nib. And he was able to do this sort of hairline writing. I don't know if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
He could do hairline writing with it. And this is fountain pen.
Unless you've experienced the finest dip pens around, you wouldn't really understand.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
you're not going to replicate it.
No, you'll never replicate it. And John, you see, I think you get an idea of the kind of passion these guys have for this, the way we had for calligraphy. You could see the fire in his eyes as he talks about this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the fountain pen world is it needs to be able to write. There are people out there that collect pens, and that's fine too. It's just amass them, but at least Aiden here likes to use and write with his pens. And that's
I write with a fountain pen every single day, and I write cursive every single day. I haven't used, unless I'm filling out a form.
Right.
I don't use print or block letters, and I've been doing that since for 10 years pretty much. I haven't been writing in block letters, and even nowadays I still try to work on my handwriting. Sometimes I change the letters around. I was just working on my B's and my M's and going slower. I think there's like a marked improvement when you go slower and try to transition into this rather than my fast hand, which is what I normally do. So
when you write letters, Aiden, just someone like John, when John was writing and I was doing a lot of writing, it's really about knowing the letter form so well you can do it in your sleep.
Correct.
And so when you're executing a letter, it's a matter of no hesitation. You just do it. And that took me a while to get. But again, you're having a good time, man. Keep writing. Don't worry about it.
Oh yeah, and the reason why I spent a lot, and I'm out of practice now, we could call it, because I haven't really actively practiced my handwriting in a long time. But when I was refining my cursive and trying to get my style, what I used to do was practice my letter forms with the letters M and letter C and I and L and T and all of those letters and P, to get the ascenders and the descenders all equal length, to get all of them on the same degree. I think my preferred degree slant was 54 or 56 degree slant. So when I was practicing handwriting, I used to be very analytical. At this point, it's more of, okay, I've gotten to where I want to be with my handwriting. I still work on it sometimes, but it's more about using the fountain pens to write than actually to continue refining my handwriting more than it has now. But I spent years working on getting it to the place it is right now. Yeah.
I think
years ahead of you too.
Yeah, I think that what the basis of all these conversations are as a love for putting pen to paper, whether it be on the calligraphic level or whether it's just handwriting. My son is getting married in April. He asked me, "Well, Dad, would you do my envelopes? Because they think I write pretty." So I said, "Sure, I'll do it." You know what? I was excited to do it because it allowed me every envelope to utilize to practice my Spencerian. I said they're not going to be in grosser script. They're not going to be in copperplate because I just don't know how to do that to the level of doing it well. I said I can do a little Spencerian. I'll do them in Spencerian script. But 190 envelopes later, I've gotten to the point where I didn't have to think much about it. I was just running through them. But it is about the joy of putting pen to paper.
Yeah, that's not joy though. I mean, John, what's the most envelopes you ever did at one point? Do you remember?
For one job?
Yeah.
Yeah, for job about 350.
Wow.
Yeah, and you don't like doing it. I mean, that's not a secret.
No.
It's not your favorite thing to do.
Yeah. I'm glad it's over, that part of me. I've been doing engraving now for 20 years because my hand just doesn't work as well. And it was tedious and so boring,
John, talk a little bit about, I have no images of that, but talk just a little bit about the engraving. I don't think they'll know what you're talking. He's talking about using almost a dental lab drill on glass. And
right.
Just speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, about almost 20 years ago, I saw, actually, you remember, Joe, because I remember we spoke about Ken Brown. He ran a quick ad that you're not supposed to do on Iampath, but I caught it, and I said, "Gee, that looks good." And then I think it was you told him somehow, whatever, is that we really can't do that type of thing. We don't advertise other things, and that was the end of it. But I contacted him, and I went to. He came to Boston from Texas. Anyway, was doing an engraving event at Neiman Marcus.
Yeah.
What it is, it's a high speed, like 300,000 RPM. I think it's a lab drill, and
it is.
We use a carbide bit and carbide burr, and you can engrave on glass, especially nicely, and metal. Certain metals are more difficult, but I've been doing engraving events in stores for past 19 years. And customers love it. The store pays me, or the company that the particular fragrance company will pay me. And I go in, set up for 5 or 6 hours, and do it free for the customer, and the place pays me. Anyway, it's been great because the condition in my hand and shoulder, in my left hand, which is affecting my handwriting, giving me a little bit of a vibration. It has no effect on the engraving at all because most of it's from the wrist. All the movement is from my wrist. So anyway, that's basically it.
When that handpiece is spinning at high speed, do you feel some torque in it, John?
Not really. I mean, it cuts so well. And over the years, I've discovered that.
The reason why I asked that is because in patients who have Parkinson's disease, they found that if they ever see one of those electric erasers that buzz and you can erase the paper with, they found if these people with Parkinsonian movement, that if you strap a pencil to that as it's vibrating, they can actually write more clear and they
Really?
oh yeah, because their muscles are reacting against it. And I don't know if they've ever done anything with that, but it's interesting you said that. Yeah, some of those hand pieces are pretty. The ones we use in the mouth go between. If they're electric hand pieces, they'll spin at about 250,000 RPM. The old ones that were air driven, the ones that made that horrible high pitched noise, those would spin free at 600,000 RPM. But as soon as they start going to the tooth, it slowed down to about maybe 350 or 400,000 RPM. And it had no torque. The electric ones have incredible torque. This is really getting off the subject now, but I just want you to say something about that, because before we were talking to Mike Soul and Mike Ward in a different talk, we were talking about the card carving that he does. You know, I think it's card carving, yeah. And there's many different ways to express yourself with this, and I think it's the whole point I ever wanted to make with folks is just use your pens, just write. You know, and I'm glad that guys like Aiden write, you know, regularly with this. Most of the people here write letters. The funny thing is, I got into it for the romance of the written letter. I never write letters. I don't write Christmas cards. I'm like the Grinch, man. I don't. And the other problem you have is that a lot of people want you to write to them. And there was a time where I could have done that, but now I can barely keep my head awake when I get home. So it was a golden time. And just thinking back, man, you and I met each other in '99. That's wow, it's what, 23 years ago or something like that, 22 years ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't do mathematics in my head, but a long time ago. And I would highly encourage anyone here, if you wanted to stop at the IAMPIT. Now, the IAMPIT convention fills up pretty quickly. The next one's going to be in Atlanta in July. I don't go there to take classes. I go there to meet my friends. I don't really teach anymore. Though this year, I think they hoodwinked me into doing something with the archive. Neil McCaffrey, those of you who use dip pens know about McCaffrey's Penman's inks. And then Bob Herford, who was the editor-in-chief of the IAMPIT Penman's Journal, or I guess they call it whatever they call it now. Bob and I were writing lots of articles at one point, and that's how my book came about. I published like 60 articles on styles of penmanship. But any other questions for John before I turn it back over to Larry and Mr. Announcer?
Thank you.
No, I just want to say what an honor it is, John, to finally see you, and I follow you on all the different platforms and inspired by your work. Same with Mike Ward. I mean, all these guys that have done this beautiful work inspires me to try to do better, and I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really do appreciate, John, you coming on, and you're always welcome to come back. Larry may want you back on for something, but you know, it's a good hangout point because, again, we're all like-minded, you know, in many respects, and you see the passion people have for their pens here, and just writing in general. You know, it's a wonderful thing, and you know, I think at some point cursive is going to become, you know, some form of coded whatever. You know,
hieroglyphics.
Yeah, exactly. Young people can't read it.
It's a dying art.
Well,
What is that?
I think it was at one time. I think
million years ago.
No, it was at one time when Michael Soul first came into it. Before I was into it or John was into it, you know, Michael's the guy who basically recovered Spencerian from the grave, and you know, he was the reason, you know, why it's popular now. Things like in grocery, copper plate has always been rather popular, but ironically, it's more popular in the United States than it actually is where it was started back in England. You know, Brian Walker started the copper plate special interest group over in England. And
Antonio.
Yeah, oh yeah. Luckily, I got to meet him at one of the he came over, and because he uses a straight pen holder, very different. It looks different than the stuff I do or John does, but it's more inspired in English round hand.
I use the straight holder because I don't have a medial thumb joint.
Oh, okay. Both thumbs?
Everybody always asks me how come I don't bend my finger? Because they don't bend. They're just one giant bone.
Oh, okay. Oh, congenital, Marilyn, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Hey, at least you got a way of writing, you know. One of the things I wanted.
I so much love the fountain pen because I don't have to worry about often. I use the.
I
don't like it.
I showed this before. This is Jason,
Oh, yes.
the handless penman. So if anybody thinks they can't write, Whether it's plain writing, fancy writing, this guy had really nothing below the elbows. And he would hold the pen the way you're seeing it there with his, just basically holding his arm. And that's a pretty high. There are people today in calligraphy that can't do as well as he could, And so it's a mess. So whenever somebody tells me, "Oh, I can't," no, it's just about trying to do it. John, J.C. Ryan, right off of J.C. Ryan, and
Right.
Michael, I'm sure Michael Ward does too.
Most of us today can't do as good as J.C. Ryan.
Yeah, and
He could outright most of them.
he used to set up on the street, and he would basically do card writing for people for money. And it was just amazing what folks can do, if the will is there. So with that, Mr. Announcer and Larry, I will shut up.
Okay, well, you don't ever have to shut up, Joe. You bring so much to the table. But anyway, I will get to you later because I want to do more of these sessions again. I think they're very important. A lot of information in here. And I think a lot of people will get something out of it.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to bring back Mike again. I'd like to bring everybody back again. John, you're included. And John, what is the lady's name that was with you?
That was my daughter, Lauren. She
Is
just,
she
I don't,
involved in it?
what?
Is she involved in it?
No.
Okay.
She just knows how to work the computer and I don't. That's all. Yeah.
Don't worry, John. I'm only 2 steps ahead of you in the caveman bracket. So
Yeah. I'm old school. I made my living with penmanship. That's how old school.
John, now, I think I read something, I could be wrong, that you do engraving now.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would really like to get into that a little bit and show some of your work as well.
Mhm.
And then back to Mike Ward. I was seeing some of the work that he's done, and it was just unbelievable, the type
Right.
of work that he's done. How can you do this? I could never do it. So I guess it's called skill, patience, learning.
It takes no skill. It just takes a lot of patience and a lot of repetition.
Every once in a while in the past, the right level of natural talent came together with the right level of draw. It's like a Tiger Woods. You can learn to be a great golfer. When those elements come together, the right parent to keep you there, the right skill level, the right dedication. And that's what some of these guys, like you hear us talk about Mataraz or Lupfer. Lupfer was told when he first went to Disneyland College in the early 1900s, he was called into C.P. Zanier's office. And Zanier told him, "You don't have it, kid. Find yourself a different line of work." And that little fire under Lupfer. It's a true story. He related that story to an early IAMPIT newsletter. And he said it lit a fire under his belt, and his button went out there and did it. But certainly, you don't have to be a natural talent at it, but it does help. So someone like Jake Weidman, when you guys get to meet Jake Weidman online, John and I was almost like almost like a passing of the torch with Jake. And guys like Mike, Michael, and I think that's where this goes on, because I certainly am not really doing that kind of work anymore. John isn't either. And for both of us, it's got to do with physical stuff. But I think that the passion is there. You see a young guy like Aiden who really likes writing in his pens, and but I've been floored by how, like I've said this before, how well how much Michael Ward has come up. So
right. So another person that I like to bring back is Diego. I thought he was sensational, and he has so much more to offer. I want to bring all this group back together and let them share all that knowledge that they have, because we don't live forever and we can't take it with us. We need to pass what we have learned to other people to keep this going.
This is the little thing that I did while Diego was here. There's my normal writing, and he taught us how to write backwards.
oh God.
Yeah.
Give me a headache,
Yeah.
Marilyn.
But this is how I used to write when I was in kindergarten. I had no idea that that was like a thing that people did. That's really cool.
Well, I mentioned Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Last
Go
but
ahead.
not least, I want to give Mike Green a special shout out. That Mike, you've been doing really well with your fountain pens. I really like the way they write, smooth and wet. They're a nice, beautiful, affordable fountain pen, and you keep up that good work.
Definitely.
Hey guys, Jake, do we have a place to store images? I guess we could do it on the website, right? On the Facebook website. If I wanted to post additional images up there, I could do it.
Sure. I do it all the time.
I posted like 100 and something images of pen size comparisons.
Oh. Well, happy NaNoWriMo to anybody who's participating. That's International Correspondence Writing Month. And if you are participating and you would like a letter from me, you can find me at youtube.com/Marilyn Darling Show. And in the About section of my profile is my address, and I will write you a letter.
That's one thing I've never got into because I'm so busy doing other things behind the line, getting people to come on Zoom, and it's a lot of work back on my end. It takes time to get people on here and set up dates. I just don't have the time to do that.
The cool thing about NaNoWriMo, Larry, there's no quota about how long a letter has to be, or you could write it on a sticky note. You could write a letter to yourself. You could do correspondence.
This is a letter I'm writing to my brother.
Before you go to bed, write a little "You rock." Put it on your bathroom window or bathroom mirror. Wake up the next day, you see it. There's your correspondence.
I understand that.
It's just to get us using our pens.
Computer, honestly, 2 or 3 hours looking for people, tracking down people, asking questions, trying to.
Well, the idea is that you just write to one person a day for 28 days, and you can either send it or not send it, or.
I can do it in 5 and 10 minutes and get it done. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say that. So if anybody was.
Well, I can tell you, we do appreciate everything you do, Larry. You know that. We all love you. And we know how much work you're putting into these deals.
But I love it. I mean, that's me. I love it. I love what I do. Or I wouldn't do it. And you know, and I guess I got to give it to, that's what keeps me going. It gives me something to look for. With my current situation, when I get dealing with pens and Zooms, it takes my mind off the negative and puts it more on the positive. And that's where my head's at. I really, really get into it.
Right. I love the glasses, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And I love seeing your smiling face.
It's been a minute.
Before we go, have you heard from Dave?
My friend over in England?
Yes.
Dave Burrows? Yeah, I hear from him every night. He phones me up. Yep. Yeah, he's doing well. And by the way, for all of you on here, if you're interested, I think Tuesday night late, Mike Ward has I don't know if he's doing it tonight.
Yes.
On YouTube, has a little demonstration. And by the way, I love the alphabet, the dictionary word of the day that they're just lovely. And that F was perfect, Mike. Perfect.
Thank you very much, John.
Real quick to Dr. Joe, you there?
Yeah, buddy, I'm still here.
I just got my answer from Dr. Stephen Brown.
Yeah.
He said, "Hi, Larry. I'm so sorry for not coming back to you sooner. I think February the 8th would work." He said, "So you are in Texas, and that is nice. Just for the time zone." So yeah, we got
Maryland. I think Stephen's on your time zone, right? Because isn't he West Coast of Canada?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with this antics.
He's in Mountain Time.
Oh, he's Mountain Time? Okay.
He's in Mountain Time. Yeah, he's 1 hour, I guess, later than where I am. He's where I grew up. That's the only reason I know that. He's in Red Deer, Alberta.
I don't
Guys,
know.
real quick, I'm going to share something with you. This is F.B. Courtney's famous letters. So have at it, guys. I can't tell you what the heck that is, but that was written by the pen wizard, F.B. Courtney. I
Are
think
you sure it's not done in a mirror?
no, that's how you read it.
No, Marilyn, it's not backwards. It's just backslanted writing.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Are you sure it's not done in a mirror?
No. He had ridiculous pen skill. Anyway, I just wanted to flash that up there. Yeah.
That's why they called him the wizard.
You know, when Dr. Stephen comes on, I don't know if y'all know him, but Dr. Stephen is a blast. Dr. Stephen is sharp as a whip, just a really nice guy. And I think y'all going to love it and have Dr. Joe with him. It's going to be one Zoom of a Zoom.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
I think he's, I don't know,
Yeah,
Marilyn, you
we'll have
familiar with
my
him, Marilyn?
backup friend, Tony.
I watch his videos.
Is he a neurobiologist or a neuro?
Yeah,
he's a neuropsychologist.
Psychologist.
Psychologist. He's a psychologist, yes.
Psychologist.
Neuropsychologist.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, I want to appreciate Tony when he comes on, because when I have people that speak Italian, I'm done. And Tony, Italiano, Tony.
Well, I don't know if you know this, Larry, but Salvatore Matroni was on, and I made the biggest blunder of my life. I showed a pen that I wasn't supposed to have, and I had to send it back because I had a prototype that was not supposed to be in my hands. And I wasn't supposed to show it on any kind of platform, and I just showed it to the manufacturer. It was a mistake. So
now we have Mr. Announcer, we haven't got to that one yet, have we?
No, I've not gotten that one.
We can delete that if
no, it's okay. It's all over. He caught it, and I had to send it back to where I got it. So it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. It's my error.
Before we go, you know, I'm working on a whole bunch of different things, but if y'all come up with any ideas, suggestions, you know, email me and I can see what I can do about them, because, you know, my goal is to bring all these people together to share what we know, what we've learned, the knowledge. It's really important. I do not want to lose what we've learned. I want to pass it on to other people. They need to carry the torch.
And I just wanted to say to my friend John DeCollibus, John, I hope we didn't bore you with the fountain pen stuff. It's just it's a different kind of insanity that we have with letters. So,
I know.
You know, it's all good, man. It's all good. And I thank you for coming on, John. I appreciate it.
John, thank you for taking the time. I will invite you back if you'll come back.
I will. I just need my daughter to come and show me how to get on this thing. Because
I'll send Doc over there to help you.
okay.
I just want to add the one part of the importance of handwriting. Handwriting is basically procedural memory, which muscle memory, which is part of a long-term memory. The other part of long-term memory is the declarative memory, which is your experiences and stuff like that. So when, for example, retrograde amnesia happens, you lose the declarative memory, which means even if you don't know who you are, you can still sign your name if you do it often enough.
Yes.
So hopefully handwriting will keep live on. You know.
I mean, someone like Glenn Campbell, who had you know, died of Alzheimer's. I mean, up till almost the very end, he was able to play his guitar. You know, couldn't even react. Yeah. Anyway, so oh, you gonna say something?
Before I go, I got one last thought. What I've always wanted to do, and it's never happened, wouldn't it be cool if everybody could come and we can have a little small get together in Fort Worth, meet everybody, share our pens, share our conversations, and eat some good old Italian food and wine. Oh.
As long as it's not in the winter time, because otherwise we're having it in California. You can stay in my house.
There you go. There you go.
If you anyone want to come, let me know. I'd have a blast.
Yep.
And I'm looking right at Dr. Joe. Dr. Joe's hiding.
No. I used to travel, but you know, right now with the pandemic stuff, and school has certain
Oh, yeah,
restrictions.
not
Hopefully they'll
right now.
lift that up.
I'm paranoid about it, so I don't want that crap at all. All right, folks, anything else you want to ask Mr. John before we go?
No.
Tony?
John, again,
No,
you.
thank you. I thanks everybody. This has been great. It's been a wonderful Zoom. I appreciate you having me.
All right, well, thank you to Mike
Thanks.
Green. Thank you to John. Thank you to Dan, Liz. Thank you to Jake. Thank you to
John,
Doc.
I'll be in touch. I'll be in
Thank
touch,
you to
John.
me and whoever else I meet. Let's see, Stan, Liz, Mike Ward, because I can't see everybody on the list. Folks, thank you for joining me today. And you know what? Hey, I broke my record. What is that 8:05?
Yeah. Oh, an hour and a half.
Wow.
I'm the 6:30 to 7:30 man, but I get so involved in it. I said, the heck with it. I'm staying.
Yeah.
Thanks for the note, Marilyn, too. That's nice. Very nice. Thank
Okay,
you.
we got some more Zooms coming up, and
Thank you.
you want to check mrannouncer.org?
Info.
Check mrannouncer.info.
Oh,
You're
all
gonna
right.
be
We
on
have
there.
it. We have it.
Now, if a cancellation comes up, it'll be on there. But right now, it's getting filled up. February is pretty full. I've stopped taking them. I'm going into March. That's getting pretty full. So we're going to have a blast this year.
Larry, have you made contact, Larry, with Jake Weidman or Dan Smith or?
I'm still waiting.
Okay, you sent out communication. They didn't respond back.
No, I haven't heard nothing.
All right, I'll follow up with Jake and see.
Please, I need to get those two on.
No, I know he's a busy guy too, but just all right. Well, I know he's interested. So, plus he's also.
I want him on. Yeah, I just trying to get him on. I don't know. Maybe he's busy doing something. I don't know. But I'll try again tomorrow. I'm gonna let you know. You can do a follow up, maybe.
All right.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Good night,
we're out
everybody.
here.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
And I have been real nice today. I haven't acted up yet. I sure wanted to.
You've been great. You've been great, Larry.
See you
You
guys.
sure?
Bye.
I think next time I have me a bottle of wine and just get wasted. All right, folks, take care. God bless each and
Bye-bye.
every one.
Good night.
Yeah.
Wiggle the mouse. You sit the leave
Dan,
button.
are you still on?
No, he's gone.
He's gone. Okay, then we're gonna let,
Well, everybody's leaving, so.
okay. We're gonna leave it here. God bless each and every one of you. Be safe. And